What's going on, everyone? My name's Tenebris Infinite, and welcome to a guide on making the ultimate Gazpacho farm. A great mid-game to end-game food, Gazpacho has the best stamina gains in the entire game. So today, let's push that stamina as far as we can to craft a one-and-done Gazpacho that will pair perfectly with our beef Wellington from a few weeks back. First off, let's go over the ingredients you'll need and where to find them, starting with the recipe itself, which is sold at the Desert Gloom Trader for 10 Tier 2 Essence. We'll then be getting marigold as our first ingredient, which when grown doesn't have the right asset quite yet, and sadly has incorrect info in the guidebook. You can find marigold as a small yellow flower by water sources in the desert in a realm score below 50. It's quite plentiful, but you'll need to look in those lower realm scores. We'll then be grabbing potatoes. These can be found in forests in realms above 150. Your best bet is in a Ascended Herbarium realm on hard or extreme difficulty, and you'll find them at most points of interest across the map. You can also find these little sacks of potatoes too, which I kinda wish we could use as a decorative piece. And then for the last ingredients we'll need, Jana's meat and bones. It's essential to making the best Gazpacho here, and surprisingly easy to farm with a bit of time dedication. We'll be setting this up in a dedicated farming realm, so you'll want to put up a portal and name it. We'll be heading to a Provisioner Desert realm. The difficulty doesn't matter, but I always advise using a lower realm difficulty for fruit farms. We'll then come to the far edge of the map. It has a nice flat area for us to work with, and is easier to set up safely with less mob spawns in the area. So let's start with the early game farm, then I'll show you how to upgrade it to the next level. We'll start by placing down a 2x2 square. We'll then come out at the corner of that square, which will serve as our farming area. We're going to make it 7 tiles wide and 10 tiles long. You'll have an inner space of 5x8 to place down your planters, and then the little square will serve as your crafting and storage area. We're then going to start on the house by placing down crude stone railings, followed by a pillar, and then placing down the stone arches, creating these nice half-circle windows. We'll then place down our doors, with one leading into the house and another one leading into the farm. Then we'll take our solid walls and surround the building. Then to get into the farm through the house, we'll add a stone archway at the back. And for the roof, we'll place in the flat roofs. And then we'll place in stairs leading into the build. To cap this all off, we'll place some crude wooden railings on top of the house, giving a bit of a height difference between it and the farm. And this is what you should have so far! The build will be costing 417 stone blocks, 48 wood, 24 sticks, and 64 fiber at this point before you move on to the planters and the crafting stations. Now with the build down, it's time to get to the grindy part. We'll need a ton of plant pots, so we'll be crafting a bunch of carved stone. We'll then place down Pterodomania pots to keep costs as low as possible, in rows of 21 pots, with the space of about a pot between them. You can always place more, but you run into the risk of hitting the augment cap too early. Then to keep things organized, we'll set up our rows by placing down a ghost platform and using that to keep things spaced as nicely as possible. Once we've got these down and need enough rows, we'll move on to the final touches of this farm. In the end, you'll have 126 Pterodomania pots if you place down 6 rows of 21. For a quicker time placing down all these pots, give your follower a bit of carved stone so that they can help out. Then we'll place in our lighting with some simple candles. You can stretch them out pretty far, but make sure after you've placed them that everything is getting the well lit buff. Stacking well lit with exposed and then later on soggy is going to be our key to having the fastest growth times possible that we could get in a Provisioner realm with constant rain. So now for our crafting setup. It's as humble as the house is, with a single campfire for the warm buff and 2 mortars. You could place a second campfire to give it the warm buff while cooking, but it's not necessary at this point. Then a bedroll to sleep through the nights, and lastly a candle so everything has the well lit buff. And for our storage, we'll put in 8 baskets, using the simple setup I showed off in my video on storage designs. With this cheap setup, you'll have 120 slots of storage. And it only takes like 80 fiber, it's perfect for the early game. Then to get this farm up to maximum speed, we'll place down a Realmic transmuter. This has the additional bonus of stopping bounce spawns in the area. Then we'll play the Tempest Miner card. You could get this in the Swamp Astrolabe if you haven't yet. And now it's always raining, which will automatically water our crops for us. Stacking all 3 buffs together, we hit the maximum of plus 75% growth speed. We'll then place down a rain barrel for emergency water. Crops tend to bug out from time to time, so you'll need a watering can on hand, and if the rain barrel isn't filling, just relog in the game. And with that, your starter farm is finished. This will be great for mass producing any veggies you need along the way and giving you mixed plants until you get to the Gazpacho. You can refine your marigold into seeds and stockpile them for later, and then use any excess marigold you get for a really good mixed plant that gives a solid amount of stamina. So now let's quickly cover upgrading because the next build uses a similar layout. To start, we'll move everything off of the base and tear down the old crafting stations. Then we'll take apart the build, starting at the top so we don't lose any resources. Once you've got all the walls torn down, you'll want to remove all of the foundations except for one so you can start the next build in the same spot. Now, either starting from scratch or from the previous build, you'll then want to make a similar ring of foundations, but this time you'll go 15 long and 7 wide. We'll then come along the outside with the double height arches surrounding the farm area. We'll leave an open space for an entrance to our crafting area. Then on top of the arches, we'll place in some desert railings. Next, we'll extend our planters out, adding in 84 more planters, or 14 more rows of 6. We're stopping at 210 planters to hopefully have enough room left for our augments and our crafting stations. We'll then place the Realmic transmuter and the rain barrel closer to the front of the base to, again, keep those bounce spawns away. The outdoor portion will cost you 400 stone blocks for the outer ring, 301 carved stone, and 172 bricks. Now for the house and crafting area. We'll start with a 4 wide and 3 long foundation. Then we'll come to the side and add a 5 long and 2 wide area, which should look like this so far. Then we'll come in with the solid desert walls and place them, leaving room for windows and doors, but still laying out the general floor plan. So we're leaving gaps into the farming area, then in spaces where windows would fit well. And we're coming in by one wall here so we can have some stairs embedded into the house. This is maybe a bit crazy of a start, but you'll see how the build comes together really easily from here on out. We'll fill in those spaces we left for windows with the desert single windows. And then we'll take desert stone arches and use them as our doorways into the build and then the farming area. Then we'll place stairs up to each stone arch entrance, and stairs up onto the roof we'll be putting in next. which will be made out of the cheapest roof, the desert-bordered upper floor. Then we'll place them leading to the stairs. With our first floor complete, this will cost you 392 stone blocks, 72 bricks, and 18 carved stone. Now with the floor in place, we can build up the rest of the house here. We'll start by making a small partition. This will serve as our storage room under the stairs. We'll cap off the solid walls with regular door frames. Then we'll add the second floor of our main structure here. Lastly, we'll be adding in a staircase. For the second floor, we'll place in solid walls at the middle of each side, leaving the side near the stairs open. Then we'll fill in the corners with the small double windows. And finish off the outside with the door leading in. We'll then add in one more staircase. This will lead us to the top floor, which we'll fill in with the plain desert floors. You'll want to fill in this portion before moving on so you can have the easiest time building. So for that last portion, it should cost you 168 stone blocks, 58 bricks, and 6 carved stone. We'll then finish the build off here with the top floor, where we'll be taking the desert railing and laying it around the edge. Then we'll take the tiled pillar and place just one at the corner here. This is so we could place in our arches to create an open concept bedroom. We won't keep that pillar though. So after you place the arch, just remove the pillar and continue building from the arch's snapping points. We're going to need just a bit more support for the roof, so we'll come back inside and build the staircase up with some additional walls, then pillars running through the building. You may need to remove a tile to place these final pillars in. We'll then take that cheap tiled floor and fill in the roof, but before you build it, you'll want to finish the build off by placing in some Tudor railings. Mixing in the Tudor breaks up the sameness of the desert build nicely here, so we'll take the railings and line them around the roof, then around the lower roof area. And lastly, we'll add in some stairs to the farm area, maxing out the build with 300 pieces. So with Nightingale right now, endgame build totals like this aren't super accurate because the game will randomly improperly calculate building costs. But the whole build cost, including augments, will be in a pinned comment down below, so be sure to check that out to make sure that you have enough resources saved up. So now the easiest part of the guide, the augments you'll need, and then how to farm Jana. We'll start with the crafting stations, where we'll place down a table first horizontally, then surround it with 4 mortars, then 2 calcularian stoves, one on either side. Then for our augments, we'll just need a light source, the macabre rack, and the pteridomania pot, and those will give us all the crafting boosts we need. But the most important augment of all, the kettle. This is what allows us to craft the Gazpacho itself. And there we go, your crafting stations are complete and ready to go. Then for storage, we'll again use a design from my video on storage systems, the small-footed chest storage. We'll have 4 chests neatly placed here, offering us 220 slots of storage. With 4, you have room for your marigold, your potatoes, and your Jana materials. Then plenty of room for your gazpacho, or overflow, or whatever you need. It's a really cheap and effective setup here for the endgame, and is neatly tucked away in this small room under the stairs. Then, because I usually use simple lighting for my farms, I thought I'd go expensive on this one and place down light posts. Totally not necessary, but they look real dang nice. It was at this point that I ran out of augment slots. If this happens to you, just run around your world and destroy named objects. It will help get the count back down so you can place more things. And there we go. See? It's totally worth it. So lastly here for farming Jana, you'll want to either set up a portal at your base or use the portal in the watch. The watch is nice as you don't have to craft any cards for it, and can be pretty quick and easy when you have a good group of folks with you. If you find hunting Jana to be too difficult though, try setting up your own portal and making a vault on easy so you can have an easier time gathering the needed materials. Most runs should only take you about 10 minutes to complete, and at 15 meat and bones per run, you'll need to do around 13 runs to get the materials for 2 stacks. So I advise to break these runs up over a few gaming sessions, 3 runs here and there, and after a day or so, you'll be able to make a stack of Gazpacho very easily. Now on to making the Gazpacho itself. It's pretty straightforward, but you could do a few things to increase your production. First, you'll gather your materials. Then we'll make mixed plants out of our potatoes. We'll refine our marigold into seeds. Cornholio will help with the crafting process through his psychic mind powers. We'll take our seeds and turn them into spice. You get 50 extra seeds per stack of flowers, so it's really helpful to crafting spice. And then we'll make our oil out of Jana meat. And lastly, our broth out of Jana bones, the oil we just made, and the spice from the marigolds. We'll then cook up the mixed potatoes we made at the beginning with some of that marigold spice. And finally, whip up our Gazpacho with the broth and salad we just finished making, giving us a full stack of overpowered Gazpacho. Offering a whopping 765 stamina, this is the best Gazpacho I've seen so far. But if you have a different approach, let me know in the comments down below. So there you go, yet another massive farm offering you folks some of the best food in the game. If you haven't yet, please check out my guide to beef Wellington and my guide to sashimi linked at the end of this video. This farm will set you up for the mid game and late game and overpower your stamina so much you'll only need to eat 1 meal, allowing you to stack these prioritized foods for the ultimate buff combos in the game. But for now, if you enjoyed, maybe consider subscribing to stick around, or hitting the like button goes a long way. But either way, thank you for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.